Suncast gave me. I've never had one of these before. Next and back on the slide.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Nice. You're dangerous with it, but
Well,
okay.
Suncast has an enormous amount of confidence in my abilities. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So yeah, this place. It's funny. It's a 1963 building, but I've got a generator. I've got fiber cable, and Max Connect for data in here. I run 10 radio stations out of this building.
Holy smokes! Wow.
Yeah, I mean they can run out of their own studios, but when we're not, they actually remote from the studios wherever they're at to here and then back. So I've got a rack right here full of interplexes and Axia gear, and to kind of contrast with the paneling, I think. But just
something old, something new.
There, exactly. I'm just now looking at my data or my metadata server. Working on that.
There we go. Suncast says we're streaming, and we are. So I'm going to like and share. You guys go right ahead. I'm just mumbling. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm just looking. I was working on my metadata server here. A server with a couple of virtual machines running. Let's see here.
How many stations does that metadata server service?
All of the entire group. So 20 some stations. Yeah.
And you do it, and you serve that out of one location. How does that help you to do that out of one location?
How does it help me? Well, basically, instead of having servers all over the state, I live about less than an hour away from here. So if there's an issue, I just have one location that I need to go to, which is why we've also put in most of our automation is coming out of here now, as well as STLs and everything else, because my feeling is that we spend a lot of money hardening this building as opposed to trying to harden a bunch of other buildings, all of our buildings, when we don't really need to do that. So like here, I spend a lot of money on a generator. I'm putting in one of those big industrial whole building battery backups. I've got 3 network paths coming in. So, it's a whole lot easier to spend the money on one facility and put everything here.
Sure.
Rather than, because again, my farthest station away is 2.5, 3 hours. So if the metadata server's up there and it needs to be kicked or something, I got to drive up there just to do that. So by moving it here, pretty much anything I need to do, I can do from here, or just VPN into here and see everything on one network. And now all of our locations are fiber and VPN and everything else. So it's really easy to do. So even the playout systems that aren't here can send their data down here to get processed and then sent off to the respective RDS boxes. So,
gotcha.
Pretty fun stuff.
I would like to get a lesson on that sometime and see if similar would be worthwhile for me. I'm not sure.
It makes a lot of sense when you're spread out like we are, because, like I said, otherwise, because this is my closest location to me, it's just really simple. Then I can just scoot over and kick something, or if it needs to, or I can keep a lot of our spares here too. So I'm having to have spares, located at each market. So, and with Axia, they have Axia surfaces in the studios everywhere else, and they can just pull up the audio, and Bob's your uncle. And the plan here is to build a couple of really nice studios for all of our stations that we can do out of here too. So there you go.
All right. Well, it's top of the hour. It's time for us to start, I suppose. All right, good deal. Hey, everybody. Glad you're with us. Just collecting my thoughts. That takes a while. Let's see here. Welcome in. Glad you're here for the show. I'm Kirk Harnack, and Chris Tarr and Josh Jones are with us today. It's going to be episode number 656. Holy moly. August 10th, 2023. I think we're coming up on how many years of doing the show? 14 or 15? I need to count.
Jeez, yeah, it's been forever.
A bunch. Wow. Chris, you were a much younger looking fellow when we started.
Yes, and your hair was dark.
It was. That's right. And I didn't have a son at that point.
Nope. I remember all that.
Oh man, he has gone through the change. You call him on the phone right now. Hey, Michael, how you doing, little guy? Dad, I'm fine. I'm doing good.
Nice.
Jeez. Oh, okay. All righty, we're ready to go. Suncast, thanks for getting us set up, and we will start our show. Hey, everybody on the network, glad you're here. This part of the show gets cut off, so if you don't see this, it's because you're watching a rerun. So here we go, the finished product. Got my drink at hand. It's just lemonade, I think. It's just lemonade. All right. We'll go for an hour. Oh, Chris, can I depend on you for something from Angry Audio?
Sure.
I've got a couple of Angry Audio pictures. What? You don't know? Okay. During the course of showing my pictures, I put in some of those guest gizmo.
I saw those. Yeah.
You cut a round hole and you drop the thing in. It's gorgeous. It looks like I knew what I was doing.
I want to see if
I went and bought a brand new hole saw from Ace Hardware and hooked it up to the drill. And man, it just went through the countertop like butter. Just powered right through it. Just very, very satisfying. Okay, let's get started here. This is episode 656, and we'll start the show, Suncast, in 3, 2. Hey, welcome This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb at the top of the tower. I'm Kirk Harnack, so delighted that you have joined us, and I mean that sincerely. If you would, tell your friends if you're watching this on YouTube or someplace where you got a like button, hey, please hit that like button. That'd be great. And if you are watching somewhere where you can subscribe, please subscribe to our channel. That way you'll get notified about shows that we do in the future. Sure would appreciate that. That would be just awesome. We've been doing the show for a long time. Chris and I were just talking about that, probably about 14 years or so. I need to actually go back and look when we did the first show so I'll know for sure. I should put that on a sticky note somewhere up here so I don't keep guessing at it. Well, I am in the Telos Alliance studio here in Nashville, Tennessee. I have been doing a ton of telosing this past week, and on the trip before that, back at my new radio station in Oxford, Mississippi. Actually, it's 3 stations because we're doing HD2 and HD3 on our new FM there. So enough about me here in Nashville. Let's jump over to Chris Tarr, but he's not in Mukwonago. The dog is not laying next to him. He's in a really old and secure facility. Chris, where are you?
I am in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, at our data center. Don't let the 1960s paneling behind you fool you. This was actually when this was built. We have 2 radio stations based out of here, that actually are, were based out of here originally. I now have, I believe, 10 stations coming out of here. This is a building that we inherited when we bought the stations and put in a bunch of redundant data paths and power and all kinds of things. So this is kind of our top secret little location, lair, as it were, away from my house. I come here when I want to get away from everybody.
Chris is at the data center.
Right, exactly. I'm doing work.
Okay. Hey, later on, I'd love to talk about that site, about your backup power, sure. If you have more than one internet source, that kind of thing. That'd be kind of cool to understand. Chris, we've got a guest who was on our show back 3.5, I don't know. Yeah, 3.5 years ago. And I was talking to Josh Bone earlier this week, and I said, Josh, hey, I need a guest idea for this Thursday. I've got guests filling up later on, but this Thursday's haven't filled it up yet. And oh my gosh, it was going to be a terrible show because Chris and I were just going to talk about stuff, but we got a guest. He's here. It's Josh Jones. Josh, welcome in. It's good to see you on the show. Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. You are coming to us from where? Somewhere in the heart of Texas.
Yeah, I'm in the suburbs of Dallas up in the northeast corner in McKinney. which is where we do our repair and stuff like that. And we do some other things up here too.
So, Josh, the way I'd like to handle this show is we're going to talk about a couple of projects that Josh Jones has been working on, and the cool philosophy behind the Max Connect group, and other groups as well, in this day and age when engineers, contract or full time, are kind of at a premium. I mean, they're stretched pretty thin. And Josh Jones is involved in going and doing a job, getting it done, getting it right, and finishing. And so we're going to talk to him about not only about the specific jobs that he's been doing, but about that philosophy of getting projects done like that. So we're going to talk about that. Also, I've been working on a new radio station in Oxford, Mississippi. What a beautiful town that is! And I've got pictures to share. And I'd like for Josh and Chris to comment on how things are going, and maybe what they see as things that I need to do to finish up there. And then Chris may have his own stories too from 1963. Gosh, that building's older than you, Chris, isn't it? I'm sure it is. He's not answering. I guess it is. Our show is brought to you in part by Nautel and the Transmission Talk Tuesday shows. They're taking a short hiatus. Jeff Welton is on the road for a few weeks. In fact, I'm going to be spending some time with Jeff Welton here a week from Monday at the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters convention. They're doing an SBENS workshop there. What's that, Chris?
I'll be there with you guys too.
That's right. You will be. Are you driving down or flying?
I am. Yes. Yeah. Amy and Emily are coming down with me. We're going to come down, I think, Friday and stay through Tuesday.
Awesome. Okay, good deal. Well, I'd love to see you sometime in there. Hey, our show's brought to you in part by Nautel, and I've been installing a Nautel transmitter and HD system this past week, along with some help from my friend Russell Lafferty. But I want to tell you, the Transmission Talk Tuesdays, those discussions and the information you glean from that are typically evergreen, or at least pretty relevant. Suncast is going to show you a webpage here. You can go to nautel.com/webinars and just click on the Transmission Talk Tuesday. There's a link that'll take you to this page. These are the recorded webinars. And so if you missed one, and I'm sure you did, I've missed a few of them myself, but if you want to know what they recently talked about, like combiners and filters, kind of a mystery for a lot of folks, you can watch that show about combiners and filters. Next Gen Talent, educating and mentoring next gen talent, how to do your grounding correctly to minimize your chance of getting damaged in lightning strikes or maybe even surges coming down the power line. You need to know about HD radio. I do. I'm installing some HD radio just as soon as we get everything going. HD radio from the ground up is going to be is one of the Transmission Talk Tuesday roundtables that you can watch. And thermal imaging devices. Chris has talked about this, so has Jeff Welton, and so has John Bissett, all been on the show talking about thermal imaging. So if you want to go back and look at these, very much worth your time for free. You don't need to do anything. Just go to the website, click on it, and watch one of these informative roundtable discussions. Of course, while you're there, check out the AM transmitters, FM transmitters, the digital radio devices. For the U.S. and Canada, they've got HD radio systems that you can find out about. You can update your transmitters software to the latest in their in the software and resources department. Lots of cool things. Thanks, Nautel, for really supporting our industry and showing that you care about us, about we engineers out in the field. Care about us engineers out in the field, and keeping things professional and easy for us to do, and make our station sound good and stay reliable too. By the way, I want to point out we are installing a used VS 2.5 transmitter at this new station in Oxford, Mississippi, and it's been an analog transmitter all this time. We are converting it to digital. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. You can take an older, Nautel VS 2.5, and we've had the directions to convert it, to use the external HD exciter. And we opened this thing up. Russ Lafferty and I opened this thing up. That transmitter's 10 years old. It's had a couple repairs done to it. It had a pallet in it replaced by me a few years ago. So I'm thinking, wow, this transmitter has kind of been through it. And yet here we are converting it into an HD plus FM analog transmitter. And Chris, I just think that's cool as could be, that we're taking a 10-year-old transmitter and putting it into HD service.
Coincidentally enough, I did the opposite with the 2.5. We got it; it was configured for HD, and I converted it back to analog. But yeah, that's what again. Nautel was really early into the game with solid state HD, and one of the things I like about their transmitters is, you can, they now make, if you bought the LT series transmitter, that was the one that wasn't HD, that didn't have the screen on the front. You can now get conversion kits to make those HD too. So, yeah, that's very cool. That is very,
Yeah.
very cool, especially seeing stuff in there that you've done.
Yeah, they had it had a couple of dates in there written by me. I thought, whoa, I even forget. Out in a bean field in Mound Bayou, Mississippi, is where I replaced a pallet. In fact, I didn't even have a big soldering iron, so we ran down to Walmart and got a little torch, a torch style soldering iron that took the little butane can, and and I replaced the pallet back on the air, full powered. And that was years ago. So, wow. All right, hey, we're here to talk to. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I was just out doing that with a Gates Air Fax 2.5 with the pallet and the really big old honking soldering iron to get the pallet off. So I can relate to that.
Yeah. All right. Hey, well, Josh Jones is with us, and Josh, let's get you on first here. Josh, let's talk for a few minutes about your projects here lately. I understand you've been doing some studio work, so tell us about that, and we may even have a picture to show what you're talking about.
Sure. Well, there's a local daytime AM here that has been around for a long time, and it's like most of the stations in this market. It's been shuffled from one building to another, one end of town to the other, and so it's currently in a commercial building that they've called home since about the year 2000. And it was time for an upgrade. The consoles were tired. I mean, they were old PRNE digitals from like the late 90s, and some of the buttons didn't work, and the guy who put it in originally, they wired everything under the sun you could ever think of, including the AES outputs, which they never used. And we were doing some wiring one night, and it's just, you're listening to the analog outputs, and it's like, man, this thing sounds bad. It's like, oh, wait, but the AES is wired. So we used that, and it sounded a lot better. So it's just kind of crazy to look back through the generations of technology and the stuff that they did use or was available to them, but nobody ever utilized or used. And so, but that's all gone now. It's we've converted it to a new audio over IP console system, and we have them in their temporary production room now for their master control until we can get the new control room built and get all that stuff moved over. But it's going well. It's been a long project. I wasn't expecting to do it all myself, but here we are. It's been, weeks and weeks and weeks of trying to get that done. But, one thing that is kind of neat about putting in a modern, especially the audio over IP stuff, is how little wiring there really is. I mean, I remember when I first started in this business, back in the early 2000s, I helped swap a console in one control room of a country station that I worked for, started with. And it was like, 50 pair shielded Gepco audio snakes and punch blocks and all that stuff, and trying to automate talk, syndicated talk shows and things like that, and all the wiring, and all that's gone now. It's just everything's all over networking. It's amazing what you can do by yourself, really, in a surprisingly short amount of time.
It is. Let's Suncast popped that picture up. Let's take a look at it again. This is the studio you've recently built. You said this is their production room. Is that right?
Yep, that's what they're using as their master control for now. It's going to wind up being their production room, and there's so little in it. I mean, it's a UPS, 2 blades, a console, and 1 PC. There's a network switch. I mean, there's just so little in a room these days. I mean, I remember you'd have like 4 or 5 cabinets, and you'd have like 3 computers, and just all the heat and all the infrastructure you had to have to make the stuff work. We just don't do it that way anymore. And so, I mean, and this has only been 15 years since, it's just kind of mind blowing how fast it has moved.
I thought we were moving along years ago when I took apart, I demolitioned, if you will, an old studio that had a tube console and a tube power supply in the rack, and pulled all that stuff out, and the amount of nicotine that was on that console, and back in the tube supply. Oh, it was gross.
Oh
And
yeah.
then the 111C repeat coils that were, strung everywhere to break hum loops and things like that. Oh my
Yep.
gosh. And then we went through the whole, solid state era and AES EBU era, and now we're in this AOIP era, and it's so convenient. And not it still requires thought and hooking things
Yes.
up and now typing, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. A lot of mouse clicking.
yeah, yeah. I noticed that you had some KRK monitors in there. I've got some of those here in my office. I kind of like them, but I want to, if Suncast will pop that up again, you've mounted them, it looks like, on floor flanges with, I was again embarrassed saying it, the threaded nipple pipes.
Yeah,
right?
it's just black iron gas pipe, and I mean,
Okay.
it's a simple, cheap, easy way to do it, and I mean, they're never going to be moved, so they're just kind of
Right.
there.
Right.
And I mean, it's just a production room as well. So,
well, I see. I love mounting
does the job.
speakers that way. Yeah.
Yep.
I like it that way. Do you find that 2 monitors is all you need?
There's actually 3 in that room.
There it is.
The one computer does have 2 monitors on it, and because they have like call screeners and stuff like that, and they have a talk room, so they need to be able to tell the people in the other room what's going on. There's some monitor cloning and stuff going on, so they can pop up who's on line 1, who's on line 2, what they want to talk about, and that kind of thing. So.
With you mentioned that there's an AOIP. Well, there's an Ethernet switch in that room hooked up that's carrying the WheatNet signals. Of course, I'm very familiar with Livewire. What brand of switch or what model have you chosen to put in there?
I think they're Cisco 2900s, I want to say, or 2650s. I can't remember. They're the little guys, and we order them. It comes as part of the package, all pre-provisioned. So pretty much the only thing you ever have to do is if you change the IP address, you have to get into it and do a little reprovisioning, but outside of that, it's pretty much plug and play.
It looks like these days you almost have to consider how many blank panels am I going to buy to cover up the places where I don't have equipment.
Yeah, and they ordered, the stock furniture, which came with 3 racks, and we really could have gotten by with 2. And if you were really, really frugal, I guess you could do it in one rack and just get rid of the sidecars altogether. But it is what it is. So they've got room for expansion if they need to do something later down the road or add additional hardware or whatever they need to do. They've got the room to do it.
So about and I know that, look, your mileage can vary a lot depending on if you brought the right tools, if all your supplies are handy. About how long does it take you to put a room like that together?
It's probably 3 to 5 days, I would guess, and that's just, you always run into some sort of weird problem. I mean, one of the nice things about being where we are is there's a lot of vendors pretty close by. So if you need rack panels or shelves or UPSs, wire, all that stuff, it's all in town. But, in a town of 12 million people, you kind of expect that.
Here's a question for you and for Chris Tarr too. I'm a little bit interested in UPSs. There's probably the most popular brand on the market that's it's sold everywhere. I really haven't had very good luck with. I've been very disappointed in the livelihood and swapping batteries, and then it doesn't work anymore. It decides that nope, I worked through one set of batteries and I'm not going to work through a second set of batteries. Just have had very bad luck. And we just bought. My partner Larry Fuss for our new Oxford Media Group and also for Delta Radio, we've just bought some made by Eaton, and they look pretty healthy. I'm kind of liking them. Anyway, Josh, if you first, and then Chris, what kind of UPS are you liking for a studio room like this? If you want to run one room off of a UPS,
it really depends on whose studios you're building. I mean, a lot of times, like the customer themselves will say, "Hey, we like this brand," and so they'll provide one, and that's fine. I mean, pretty much we just went down to the local supply house and said, "What have you got?" Because these are not going to be in here for all that long, because eventually they'll swap them out with the units they like, but we couldn't get those in time. So I think right now they're just using the really kind of cheesy plastic trip light ones, which I don't really like them either, just because any plastic box that you screw rack ears on kind of feels sacrilegious to me. But It is what it is, and I mean, the price point reflects that, but they've got them, they had like a pallet of them sitting at the IT place. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess we'll take 2 of these and we'll get by. And I mean, they seem to work. Are they going to be as quiet as a real good, true sign UPS? No, but it'll get the job done. It'll keep your computer from turning itself off when the lights go out.
Chris, how about you? What do you like in these days?
I concur with the trip lights. I do not like them at all. I've had horrible luck with them because typically when they fail off. So what happens is, you have to come in and boot things up and remove the UPS. So I'm not a fan of those. APC has been pretty good to me. They are the cheaper plastic ones, but usually when we have issues with those, they stay on. And I'd much rather have an alarm and have to maybe prematurely swap a battery or something. But I have yet to have one fail in a way that takes me off the air. So that's kind of a good price point. I'd love to get bigger Eaton ones, but budget just in our situation isn't gonna work for that. So we generally my storage I've got a bunch of APCs, and I just stock backup batteries and swap them out as we need to.
Well, I'm glad you've had better luck with APCs than I have. That's the brand that I've had a fair amount of difficulty with. In fact, one APC failure in American Samoa while I was there, almost back to the airport to leave. Stations went off the air. We actually got a police escort from the airport back to the studio so we could troubleshoot why are we off the air. And the UPS had failed, and it failed in a non-pass-through mode. So, so we bypassed it by taking it out, and then had another one shipped there. But and then we got a police escort back to the airport. It was kind of fun.
They do make solutions. There are little power strip bypass things, I think, that'll automatically, like if the UPS output fails, it'll automatically dump you onto utility power. But they're pretty expensive.
I use those at transmitter sites, though.
Yes.
Sure.
Yep.
Actually, there's I just put one in because we've advertised it here from Henry Engineering, Hank Landsberg. He makes a little one that is rated for 15 amps. And here's how I used it. Seemed to make sense. In the station I just built, some of my servers have 2 power supplies. Okay, so one power supply goes to the strip that's on the UPS. The other one just goes to the commercial power with nothing else there. But our playout machines all have one power supply, and so I put one strip in there, and it's fed by that Henry Engineering switch. So if the UPS fails, it switches immediately, and we tested it over to the shore power, to commercial power, and then it reverts back when the UPS comes back. So you can take the UPS offline and everything that's on that, will stay on as long as the commercial power is on. And so for devices that had just one power supply, that made sense to me is the best way to keep them on. Okay. Hey, we're talking to Josh Jones, and Chris Tarr is along with us too. It's This Week in Radio Tech. We're talking about our summer projects. Josh has described a production room that he built. And Josh, if you could stay with us, if you can, for the rest of the time, we're going to show a few pictures from my stations, and I'd love to get your comments. What would you do different? What do you agree with? What have you found? Maybe just a different way to do it. And you too, Chris Tarr. Love to hear about what you've been doing as well. Our show's brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics. And if you're not familiar with the whole world of Broadcast Bionics, oh my gosh, your disc jockeys will love you if you implement some of the cool solutions that Bionics has for you. We'll take a quick video look right now and be right back.
Welcome to the Bionic Studio. The Bionic Studio brings all audience interaction to the fingertips of a production team in radio, TV, and podcast. Our workflow-led system is working 24/7 around the world for small broadcasters and national and international networks. Our telephony module, Bionic Talk Show, allows cost-effective centralization, remote operation, scalability, and resilience across an entire network of stations, but at the same time is used in single-studio self-op environments. Social media curation and activity is now considered a broadcast-critical part of programming. Bionic Social means the studio isn't overwhelmed with a wall of interaction from an ever-growing number of social platforms. We combine SMS, MMS, and email together with a speech-to-text service for listeners using smart speakers. We enable studio teams to curate, filter, and display all platforms in one place, and post text, images, and video content to multiple platforms in one operation. effortless collection of video content with Bionic Director has helped position some of the world's most successful stations as leaders in viral content, generating appointments to listen and free marketing via retweets and shares. Bionic Contest enables end-to-end tracking of on-air competitions, live reads, and prizes. These could be on-air contests, automated SMS entry, or online. Anywhere, and Skype TX for Radio brings high-quality audio and video contribution into the studio with ease. No need for dedicated PCs to run different applications. Everything is controlled within the Bionic Studio UI, and incoming connections are visible to users along with all other platforms. Our codec integration enables connection, algorithm configuration, and directory to a wide range of IP and ISDN codecs. The Bionic Studio, a unique suite of products designed to enable your talent to work smarter.
And hey, when you talk to Bionics, hey, be sure you look at their new virtual rack piece of equipment as well. It allows you to easily integrate or deploy virtual broadcast products like consoles from Telos Alliance, from Axia, phone systems from Telos, even coming soon, an audio processor, the Forza audio processor. This is really cool stuff. Check it out from Broadcast Bionics at bionic.co.uk. All right, we're going to jump into some more pictures here. Suncast, if you could queue up my first picture, and I will see if I can push the button here remotely. This is kind of cool. All right, so a few weeks ago, I went to Oxford, Mississippi, for the first time to scope out the transmitter site that we would be using. There's no FM antenna mounted on this tower in this picture. I took it with the drone, obviously, but it's a cell tower. It's also, let's see if I can now punch to the next picture. Let's see, Suncast. I'm not getting next here. I'm pushing next, but not getting next. It says it's connected, but there we go. It's at a water treatment facility, actually. That's the water treatment gear in the lower left. In fact, I just found out yesterday that big, not the water tower, but the next thing to the left is an aerator, and that's used to not, aerate the water, but it also raises the pH value, apparently. So we mounted the antenna on this tower. Suncast next. I'm pushing next, but unfortunately, it ain't doing anything. Right there's that blank spot. That's where the building is supposed to go, and in fact it is there. Next picture, and we'll see about it. Oh, okay, well, we'll get back to the transmitter site in a few pictures later. This is the beginnings of the studio, and the idea here is that I wanted to try something that I've been talking about for a while, and that is put all the playout gear and the audio console and of course the audio processors, everything, even the phone system, the broadcast phone system, at the transmitter site. Everything's at the transmitter site, and then we remote control the audio console. We're using the Altus audio console that has built-in WebRTC with an Opus audio codec, and lets you contribute remotely, listen remotely. And so this is the beginnings of the studio. All right, next picture. I did have to make arrangements for a local mixer at the studio because we need to mix 3 mics together to send down one Opus connection back to the transmitter site. I wanted to, kind of a mix between ease of installation and yet making it look neat. So we went and bought some plastic conduit clamps, and we just screwed those to the back side of the furniture. Later on, we pushed this furniture back closer to the wall after we got it done there. But I just, installed a bunch of conduit clamps there to make that wiring kind of disappear from normal view. Next picture. And we set up all the automations at the studio, but remember, they're going to go to the transmitter site. So this is 4 servers for various functions like audio processing and the container server for the Docker containers, the utility computer, the Mr. Master computer. That's all in the back of my car. And then all the automation computers are in there too. So a whole lot of intellectual property, and 3 radio formats are in my Toyota 4Runner. Next picture. So we'll move along, and then here we are after we've started installation inside the new transmitter building. Maybe there's a picture of it coming up later on, but this was a prefab building that we bought used, and excuse me. So it's just big enough really for our needs. 2 equipment racks are in there. The Nautel transmitter is not installed just yet, but you can see the automations are in the right-hand rack. The utility Dell servers are in the left-hand rack. The Omni 11 is up there in the top of the left, and we're just kind of and the EAS gear is out there too. Next picture. So let's see. I wanted to show off the Max Connect box. We made arrangements for fiber internet to be put out here literally 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago. And of course, they sat on their hands and didn't get it done. So even to this moment, as we're recording the show, that Max Connect is our only internet connection out there, and it served us really well. We do want the fiber because it'll be more bandwidth, but the Max Connect has allowed us to set most everything up that we're going to be setting up. So glad to have that, and it's been performing quite well. Also using its Wi-Fi capability to run the little Wise camera that you see there. Next picture, and here's the tower crew. There's the antennas. A couple of I guess are those SWR brand antennas? I think they are. Yeah, and there's
they look like it.
Yeah, with radomes. Radomes in Mississippi, really? Yeah, we get ice in Mississippi. Oh my goodness, it's terrible. So that's the tower crew and Russ Lafferty right there. All right, next picture. It's just a 2-bay antenna. There's me in the studio, got the touch screens, and I decided to use those Dell 24-inch touch screens. They're easily available, about $330. To run those touch screens, and all we really need this for those two computers is we're just running a browser. That's all we're doing, because that's how you access the Altus audio console that's running in a container at the transmitter site. Just a browser and an internet connection. So the computers are actually strapped. You can see them cable tied onto the mount for the monitor. And these are just little B-Link brand, BEELINK. They have a slew of different models. We found a model that has 2 network connections on the back of it. And so I'm using one of those network connections for Livewire and the other one for the business network, for browsing. So we'll continue on now. Next picture. Back at the transmitter site, things are moving along there. We have over in the right-hand rack, there's the router in the top, the router board router from MikroTik. I don't have the most recent pictures because I've really neatened things up out there and hidden the wiring pretty well and made it look neat. There's a Cisco CBS 220 series switch for the business purposes. That's the 48 port switch, which is way more than we need, but it was cheap. And then the EAS gear under that, an EAS expansion relay, because we got to put EAS on the HD stations as well. Then there is an Axia analog node that's actually just loop out and loop back in for EAS purposes, but the audio performance is just fine, so we don't really lose anything there. And then the automation computers are down below the monitor, and then the automation server is the blue box down at the bottom. Left-hand side, there's the Omni 11, which is doing the FM processing and the HD1 processing. Not installed yet is the HD exciter from Nautel. That had not arrived yet when I took this picture, but there's that Nautel VS 2.5 that I mentioned that we've owned for 10 years. I didn't realize it. And then below that are the Dell servers, and then below that is a Cisco CBS 350 switch, which is for the Axia network, and that wiring's also gotten cleaned up since this picture was taken. Next slide, Suncast. Oh yeah, okay. I'm sorry. We can look at a few close-ups here. Suncast, you can punch through these here. There's the EAS and the loop in, loop out, and the KVM. There's the automations down there and the automation server, and then there's the Omni 11. With and there's a AES EBU node that's feeding all the HDs as well. All right, here we are outside. There's the antenna mounted way up almost to the top of that tower. It's actually just below the level of that round microwave dish. All right, next picture. And here's Larry. He is doing whatever programming he needed to do at the transmitter site. He can do all this remotely now, but it was convenient just for him to do it right there while we were working. Next picture. Always bring a chair. We forgot a chair. That was a dumb thing to forget. So this is me just putting the rack rails, in there to slide the HD exciter in and out. Next picture. Back at the studio, kind of getting things set up. Got Adobe Audition, set up, and two screens now on the production computer. That USB Focusrite box goes away; it's not needed anymore. Everything's done in LiveWire there, and then the two touch screens over on the left. Hey, this is what I want to spend a minute on. Look, I'm so proud. This just made me feel so good. Catfish at Angry Audio said, just drill a round hole, 2 3/4 inches. So we went down to the Ace Hardware, bought a brand new hole saw, and it just cut like butter through that tabletop. And next picture, we'll see that thing getting ready to go in place right there. That's one of those guest gizmos. So it's a headphone amp and a cough, a mute button on there. And there it is. It looks professional. In the next picture, I think I got the screws in there. Oh no, I didn't put another picture. Okay, I did put the screws in it. And there's our beautiful control room at night. Isn't that pretty? I think it's gorgeous. There's an Innovonics tuner in the top of the little rack over on the far right there, and it's not a real mod monitor, but it shows levels on that. All right, next picture. What's next, if anything? Oh yeah, just another angle there. And I wanted to show you, this building, of course, came with 2 of those barred air conditioner units that hang on the outside of the building. Only one of them was working, so we got to work on a little warranty issue with the seller, because it was warranted that everything would work. But that's the controller for it. Next picture. And then there's the 2 barred units outside. One of them has done a great job, even in the Mississippi heat of the past couple of weeks, 97 degrees outside and 100% humidity. Just one of those units has kept the room nice and cool and comfortable. Next picture. There's me and Russ Lafferty in the control room. These huge monitors are so cheap that a lot of radio stations are putting these big monitor screens up, and then running internet to them. And we have just various things running, including a slideshow of the station's logos, along with a business channel or the weather channel, that kind of thing. I don't know if I have any more pictures. Do I have? Oh yeah, okay. Oh, that's just an early picture of the room before we did much of anything. And that was before we got the transmitter site. So we were putting the getting the automation systems squared away initially, and that's in the phone room, or the tech closet at the main studio, where we just put up a temporary table and put the automations right there. There's the lobby, pretty standard stuff. And then there's the little building set in place at the transmitter site. A crane did that. It was amazing. Crane lifted that building up and plopped it right over there in place. And oh my goodness, I think it was $8,000 to have the crane come over and do that. It was expensive. It was a lot. Any more pictures? Nope, that's it. Okay. Well, that's my adventure there, guys. I should have invited you to jump in at any time. Chris, Josh, do you see anything that you have a question about, or anything that you see? I would have done that different, Kirk. What do you think? Nobody's going to say anything.
Excuse me. I'm a big fan of using the rings like you were using. I tend to put them under the counter so that they're a little more hidden, so you can look in the back and not see anything. I didn't look close enough, but did you use tie wraps or did you use Velcro on your cable bundle?
Yes, both. I used tie wraps in places where I needed to hold a bunch of cables to something. And then I used Velcro. I used Velcro, and the Velcro tie wraps came in after my first trip. They arrived late, but I've been using them everywhere else now to take bundles that are already partially tied somewhere and then adding more cables and neatening them up. Sure. So yes, the answer is both, I think, where appropriate. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, it looks really nice. The transmitter site's nice and tidy, and I didn't really see anything that made me scratch my head. That's for sure. Good call on the shelter. I know a lot of stations like to buy those. There's one that I built coincidentally with the VS 2.5 in it. Same thing. Bought a used equipment shelter with the air conditioning, everything in place, and it's been fantastic. And really nice. Relatively inexpensive way to build a little transmitter site.
I got a comment about that. When I was going over the different scenarios that we could build the radio station, traditionally with the automations at the studio, like you would normally do, one problem was we have no line of sight to the transmitter site. Even it's only 2.5 miles away as the crow flies, but the business park that the studio is in, you can't have 6 inches of antenna hanging up over the roof line. You cannot put up a tower. You can't do anything. And so, and you can't even use any internet other than the AT&T that's already in the business park. So that was a bit of a problem for us. And so I suggested, why don't we put everything at the transmitter site? Well, then it turns out that my partner, Larry, he had already arranged for just a kind of a run-of-the-mill wooden transmitter shelter to go in out there. I said, Larry, we're going to put the whole radio station out there, and it needs to not have bugs in it. It needs to be sealed up. It needs to be well grounded. I'm really not comfortable with a wooden shelter like you might do if you're really going on the cheap for a transmitter site. But then he realized that he didn't need to buy a backup power generator for the studio. We didn't need one there. We only needed one at the transmitter site because everything is there. So he took the money that he would have spent on a generator for the studio and he put it into buying a used professional shelter. So I think that worked out really well, and I'm delighted that he made that decision to go ahead and get the good shelter.
Yeah, that's
Josh,
really that's a nice building.
And that makes a huge difference having a good building. It really does. And it's concrete on the floor. It's easy to sweep out, whereas we've had some transmitter sites, actually still do, that have wooden floors and there's just dust coming in everywhere. And it's just not it was a good environment for a tube transmitter in 1963, but that's not where we are anymore. We have, sensitive equipment underneath a lightning rod, and we need to really take care of it. Josh, what did you see that you might comment on?
I really like the reused shelter idea. I've seen a bunch of other stations actually do the exact same thing. It's a cost-effective way to get a much better building than you could otherwise afford. And usually the biggest problem is trying to get it moved into the site. But I recall there was, I think, a station up in DC that we were helping with that put 2 fax transmitters in that building. The only thing you really got to watch out for is the air conditioners are used, so you're going to have to spend a little more on maintenance on those and sometimes getting them up to snuff or replace them. But other than that, they're great buildings, and I mean, nothing beats having concrete over your head, especially when you're in ice and tornado country.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. In fact, our contractor is going to build an ice bridge. Actually, that brings up one more quick topic before we break for our next commercial. And Josh, this has to do directly with you, and Chris maybe had a need too. I could have done more of the work there myself, but we brought in our good friend Russ Lafferty, and Russ has a tower guy that he works with, and this tower guy is properly insured. In fact, he got registered with American Tower that owns this site and got approved by them to do the tower work. And it's really great to offload that work to another engineer who kind of more specializes in that. Russ is really good at transmitter sites. That's what he spends a lot of his time doing. And his tower guy, Marty, just terrific people and very professional. So, that's work that I didn't have to do and work that I didn't have to arrange to do. Honestly, 30 years ago, well, and maybe I wasn't properly insured, but I may have put that antenna up myself 30 years ago, and that'd be stupid. I mean, I'm 61 years old now, and so it's good to have a professional do that. So, Josh, I want to relate that to what you guys do at Max Connect. You offer yourselves to come in and do a job that a local engineer, a contract engineer, may or may not be really outfitted to do well. You guys can make sure it gets done right.
Yep, absolutely. We do a lot of turnkey stuff now. So if you want a new transmitter or you want your studios rebuilt, they'll bring us in and we'll do it basically beginning to end, including part of the planning phase and figuring out what IO you need, what equipment, what transmitter, whatever. And so yeah, that's the bread and butter of our business really right now.
Good deal. Chris, you have a comment on that before we break about bringing other people in? Do you bring people in sometimes to help you out?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've got really a really good tower crew with people who, understand broadcast. They do a lot of radio and TV. So, they're very well versed in that. In fact, a real good friend of ours ran a tower company for many, many, many years, and he's retired now. But he loves the fact that I call him in to help me design these tower projects because it keeps him in the game a little bit. So I have people that do that. Obviously, I have transmitter people, I have studio people. You can't, especially with 20 stations, I can't do it all myself. There's sometimes, a lot of little things I'll do, but, with these big projects, my job is really to plan it and then get other people to execute it. Whether it's, groups like Josh was talking about, or Mike Patton's come up a couple of times for an AM array that I have. So yeah, I have a Rolodex of people smarter than me that I call, and I think that's a good thing to have because like the Max Connect people, they have experience in doing these things well, and they have an incentive to do these things really well. So why not lean on that expertise and know that you're not gonna miss something. I'm a busy guy. I don't do studios for a living. I do everything, and there's a good chance that if I'm putting a studio together, that there's gonna be something that I don't think of. And with them, that's their job, is to ask those questions and make those determinations and bring those things up so that, as he said, it's turnkey. It's done. I can walk in and start using it. So yes, absolutely. I rely on groups like that for help.
Well, and part of it too is we're all being forced to kind of do more with less. I mean, like my former chief engineer now is in charge of, I think, 15 or 20 signals across 3 states. There's no time to deal with a transmitter install, especially if it's going to be a complicated one where you're changing out line and antennas and everything else. There's just not you don't have the resources or the time. And, a lot of times, and it's never close to home. It's always 4 hours away.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that kind of thing too. So.
Gotcha. Yep. And actually, you guys basically have done the ad for Max Connect now. I want to mention, we mentioned that I'm using the Max Connect wireless 4G LTE modem at the transmitter site until we get our fiber from C Spire put in. They're supposed to finally finish that up next Monday. We were there actually yesterday. Yeah, I think yesterday when the fiber splicer came by and he got us spliced into their backbone there. But having the Max Connect box there has been absolutely invaluable. We had to have it, and it worked very, very well for us. And as Josh was mentioning, Max Connect Group, Josh Bone and his company, they offer engineering services, some turnkey services all over the country, especially at this point, mostly on the eastern half of the country, although Josh Jones, who's our guest here, is in Texas himself. They offer a lot of services that you ought to just kind of keep in mind, things like studio construction, analog or AOIP construction, transmitter installation, transmitter site upgrades, tower services, automation installation and setup, solutions for connectivity, whether that is fiber, copper, or even wireless, site monitoring and control. Hey, you need to stream your station. Yeah, Max Connect can do that too. And NRSC measurements, they do those as well. You're supposed to get those done. Plus, everybody could use better grounding. I got it to everybody could use better grounding than what they have. So contact Max Connect Group at Max Connect. I know it's spelled funny. MAXXKONNECT.com. There's a link in the show notes. Thanks a lot, Max Connect. And also, our show is brought to you in part by Angry Audio. And Chris Tarr is going to make up something wonderful. I showed you what I did with Angry Audio and put those guest gizmos in. Man, that made me feel like a genius. Chris, what do you got for us?
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because they've got a brand new console coming out called the Rave. And it is great if you've got a small studio like production, or maybe just a small on-air studio. And we're going to kind of talk about that in a little bit with remote studios and things. But, you can put together an entire studio just with Angry Audio. You can start with the Rave console. Then you put a microphone in. Well, you're going to need mic processing. So take a look at the Smooth mic processor. Then, of course, you have guests. So you're going to need on-off buttons. You're going to need headphone amplifiers. You're going to need volume control. They have gadgets for that. Let's say you want to, plug in your computer and you need some sort of interface for that. They've got that. Let's say you want to do, the on-air processing, and you're on a budget. You've got these, you're building this small, nice studio, but you're not doing audio over IP wherever. You're on a budget, and maybe you have an older audio processor. You can make it sing with the C-level processor. You put that in as your AGC, and we'll talk a little bit about my facility right here. I've got 5 of them in a rack right over here. Headphone gizmos, you can plug it in, use that for your headphones. Signal lights. You can see the studio signal lights there. They're really nice. They're very inexpensive. They're black ABS. They look really good, but you don't have to wire them in. They have a light gadget that takes care of that. You plug in your choice of GPIO, and you can turn the lights on and off without having to mess with a whole bunch of wiring. So if you look right here, this is your entire studio right here, just from Angry Audio. And these things are built well. They're built like tanks. They use great power supplies. Catfish Dosh takes a great pride in things like audio transformers, noise floors, all of those things. So much care is taken with the design of these products that by the time you're done putting in all of your Angry Audio gear, the processors, the lights, the console, you are going to have not only a very nice studio, but a very good sounding studio. Nothing here, no buzzes, no hums. Everything connects up with Studio Hub Plus. So again, you're not dealing with punch blocks or anything like that. You could put something together, I bet, in an afternoon. Check them out online, angryaudio.com. Call your favorite broadcast distributor for more information, and check out their newest products, the Rave console and the Smooth microphone processor.
Nice. Thank you very much, Chris, and thanks to Angry Audio for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right. Well, it's time to talk to Chris about anything that he's been doing that he wants to share. I'm still curious about the building that you're in and how that has turned into a data center. I'm curious about what you have done to, make it, when you think of a data center, you think of a place that it's got to have reliable power and probably better have more than one way of getting internet in there. So how'd you pick that place, and what did you do to make it reliable, because it is serving the needs of a lot of your radio stations?
Well, it's interesting. The story here is interesting. We bought there are 3 radio stations in this building that we bought a couple of years ago. And there's not much going on in this building. In fact, we were looking at selling the building and moving away because we've kind of moved our operations out. And it's kind of in a weird area. It's kind of a residential area, and we really had no bites on it. So at the same time, we were kind of looking for a place to centralize some of our equipment. We were still kind of distributed across, 20 stations. So we started talking about it. I said, I think we could take that building and add some things to it and make that our data center, because it's close to where I live. My assistant, Ty, doesn't live that far away. I said, this would be a good place. There's lots of space, and I bet we can really get some good connectivity out here because it's a residential area. So that's what we did. We ended up, we have AT&T fiber and Charter cable internet for the 2 primary connections. We also have a Max Connect for out-of-band access into the building. And we have a generator that runs on city gas. And we, most importantly with that, by the way, is I have a service plan. They come in every quarter and check all of the fluids and everything else and make sure that everything runs. UPS, we're putting in a building UPS. Right now we have small ones. We're putting in a whole building UPS that'll actually, it's one of those ones that, the office runs off the battery all the time, so that if the power goes out, there's really nothing going on here. HVAC is well taken care of. So, our decision was, once we picked where we were going to go, instead of, our issue is we have studios all over we have buildings all over the place. So it's real difficult to go to a building, 2 hours away to reboot a computer or whatever. So we decided with this data center, we were going to start running things like our metadata, our playout machines, everything else out of this building for all of our stations. Now, with the way technology is today with fiber, we can still run programming from other buildings. It doesn't, just like you're doing with the transmitter site. Think of this as just a really fancy transmitter site, really. But we have right now, I've got 10 stations being fed out of here. I'm looking over at my Interplex boxes. And we're starting to virtualize. I've got a server now that does all the metadata for all 20 stations. So it's just one server running a couple of instances of Windows 7 with some software on there, the middleware software. So that all is on one server here. We just bought another server we're going to start building our playout machines on. Then we got another server coming in that we're going to do our streaming on. So really, it's a real cost-effective way to really build one really nice, solid facility to feed all of these different places, rather than trying to spend that money in each place with a generator and a battery backup and multiple internet. And, we would have to do that at every one of our sites, and we really can't. That just doesn't make sense. So we do that here, and then what we do at our transmitter sites is again, very cost effective. We have another parallel machine there, playout machine, that has the log in it or whatever, and that runs. So if for some reason the fiber goes down or whatever, it picks right up and just plays from the machine out of the transmitter site. And actually, the Omni 11 is great for that because it's got a built-in silent sensor. So we can use that as kind of the backup. And people go, well, why don't you just leave it out there and run it from out there? Well, again, we've got EAS here, and we want everything to be centralized so that if we have a failure, I just have one place to go. And that's here. Whereas again, if we just rely on the transmitter sites, I've just moved the problem from a studio to a transmitter site. I still got to go out there. And in fact, some of our sites are inaccessible in the winter. So, that isn't going to work. So this was really kind of our answer to, how do we centralize things and, make it easier for us to respond to problems, so that if we're off the air or we're having an issue with a playout machine or whatever, we're not in trouble for 3 hours or 3.5 hours while I get up there to fix it. And also, we've got all this space. We've got a garage. We've got, all this old office space. I got a lot of storage here. In fact, you can see here, I've got some stuff that I'm working on putting in storage with stuff we've taken out of other studios that I'm asset tagging and giving inventory on so I can move it. So, that's kind of the story back here. And again, I that's why I'm here today. I came out to do some work on our metadata server. It's maybe a 45-minute drive from my house. And again, it just, we looked at it as, well, let's take one place, build it way out. We're going to put some more racks in. And with Interplex and fiber these days, or, even with Axia and their MPX boxes and things like that, there really isn't a reason, if you have multiple stations, there really isn't a reason to not do this. And here's another benefit. And I know I'm running out of time here. Another benefit we had is we for one of our stations here, we had a big piece of real estate down in Racine for our studio building that we didn't really need. I mean, because again, we have this building in Fort Atkinson, which is not that far away. We can put a studio in here. So, the only reason we left it there for a long time was for an STL, because we needed to get an STL shot in there. Now with fiber, that's not necessary. You can go anywhere. Same thing with our West Bend station, where we're renting a big office space for a lot of money. But with fiber, I just had fiber turned up at the transmitter site there. We can move into a smaller space and not worry, more importantly, not worry about, can we get a shot from there? We can go wherever, whatever affordable, nice facility we want to get, office space, we can get without worrying about STL coordination or anything else, because all that's here and it's running off the fiber.
Nice. Wow. We got to explore more about that. So I'm amazed that you have such great internet connectivity at your transmitter sites. And I'm sure it wasn't all easy, but and I'll mention her here. We mentioned her before, and I know she watches the show, is Kristen Roberts. And
Well, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. What is the name of her company?
Oh, IQ Wired.
Oh, just yeah, IQ Wired. That's right.
Yeah.
Now what Kristen does is she's been instrumental in doing this. I mean, we've literally put in this year 7 or 8 fiber circuits, and in fact, I've got 2 of them right now that are in some form or another getting installed. And she's been able to really help me get connectivity at these places where I really didn't think we were going to be able to do it. And she's figured out ways to do it.
You know what? I'm going to put Kristen Roberts' company name and link in the show notes today, because she's been very successful for you getting quality internet where you need it. And a lot of folks ask me, because they're getting ready to do something with a Telos Alliance product, and they need good internet. And they say, well, we can't get good internet.
What's great with Kristen is she understands radio. She was her previous company. She did the same thing, and I've worked with her for years and years and years, even back in my intercom days, when we were doing like telco audits and things like that. But she understands radio, and she understands how things need to be with these providers, and will make sure it gets done.
Hey, we're going to take our last break, and we've got a great tip of the week coming. Josh, is Josh still there? 3-shot?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Josh, of course, once again, I have failed to inform our guest that at the end of the show, we do a tip of the week. So it could be a website.
I am beginning to think you don't forget. I think you like putting these guys on the spot every week. Oh, no, I happen to forget that. Oh, no, really? I don't know, man.
Really? Josh, in the next 2 minutes, be thinking of a tip of the week that you can leave our viewers and listeners with, something that they can take home and put to use, or put their pipe and smoke it, so to speak, and just, some words of wisdom that'll help out engineers. Chris, you do the same. And we're going to be back in just a couple of minutes. Every disc jockey loves Vox Pro, and here's St. John to tell you about it.
Hey, what's happening? St. John here, coming to you from Command Central, and wanted to tell you about the absolute best partner you can have in radio. I'm talking about, boom, Wheatstone's Vox Pro. Lots of different audio software out there. Why Vox Pro? It's the only software designed to do what we needed to do, which is record, edit, playback in real time. When I say lightning fast, I'm going to show you how fast you can edit stuff up in Vox Pro right now. So literally 3 clicks on the controller, mark left, mark right, everything that gets marked, you hit delete, it goes away. It's literally that fast. So we're going to take this part right here. Boom. From caller 9 to him saying, I'm ready.
5, ready for that secret sound.
Boom. All of that stuff, hit delete, it goes away. Here's your edit.
You are tackling secret sound, caller 9. I'm ready, St. John.
One of the best features of version 7, this is awesome. It's effects macros, and you can literally put a chain of effects together so that instead of having to normalize a phone bit and then use noise reduction on it and EQ it and all that, you can literally build a chain. One button, this one's called call right here. I just click that. All of those processes happen instantaneously. Final thing that I love about Vox Pro, and there's so much more to get into, but one of my favorite things, you can load it on a laptop. I've literally done my show from a hotel room in Armenia to the conference room at, this was fun, jury duty. Great thing, no one could tell the difference. Vox Pro makes it totally easy. Telling you, if you're looking for the best on-air partner, call my friends at Wheatstone, ask them about Vox Pro, and you will be glad you did.
And to get Vox Pro, what you need to do is contact Broadcasters General Store, because they're the retailers. They can actually sell it to you and give you a discount too. So Broadcasters General Store, the website is bgs.cc. You can call them though. They really love to hear you on the phone, and they're built to take phone calls and look up what you need and give you the information you need quickly. 352-622-7700. I've got them on speed dial, and quite frankly, I've had BGS on my speed dial since the early 1990s when I was doing engineering for Sam Phillips in Memphis, Tennessee, and he'd want to say, get them pretty girls over at BGS on the phone. I want to get some discount prices and buy some gear. So that's absolutely true. Check them out, Broadcasters General Store. Thank you very much, BGS, and thank you, Vox Pro, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, it's time for our tips of the week. My quick tip is, you got to build a transmitter site, get a quality shelter. Don't use a Fred shed. Nothing against Fred sheds, but don't get a Fred shed. Get a quality little building, even if it's used, even if it costs you $8,000 to hire the crane to plop it in place. Oh, it's just delightful to have a great shelter. And you know what? They're available because all these so many cell sites are moving away from concrete buildings, and their gear just goes in metal cabinets outside. Or actually, a lot of it up on the towers, where a lot of the gear, the electronics, is now. So there are more of these buildings available. In fact, in the show notes, I'm going to see if I can put you a name and number for a broker for these used buildings. Okay, Josh Jones, do you have a tip of the week for us?
I do. Of course, we're in summer heat season now, as you've probably, if you've looked at a weather map any time in the last month, you know that it's hot pretty much everywhere, and your gear wants to stay cool. What's a good way to do that? Walk around your sites and make sure that the condensers on your air conditioning systems are clean. Just hose them out with a garden hose every once in a while. If you don't have access to that, bring a garden sprayer. It's not great, but it's better than nothing, and it will get some of the dirt out of the coils and help your unit run better and keep your building cool. Really important this time of the year.
Yeah, that's great advice. And you can do that yourself. You can also hire a company to come out and service the air conditioner. They can check the head pressure and the Freon and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, well, of course, of those Bard units that came with our used building, one of them didn't work. And so we hired a company to come out and they checked. And it was the evaporator fan wasn't working, the blower motor. So they're going to replace that. And hopefully we'll get some warranty from the people we bought it from. But little maintenance goes a long way on air conditioners. Chris Tarr, what you got for us, buddy?
All right. So one of the problems we've got with having radio stations all over the place is we have gear all over the place. Some of it's in use, some of it's not. But what we started to do is remove the gear from different places and start putting them in one place. And we've also started doing asset tagging. And the asset tagging, let's squeeze that up there. The asset tagging isn't necessarily to, for pricing assets like that, but they're for being able to find this stuff. So essentially, the database that we have has the type of gear. You can search by type of gear, you can search by location, and you can really drill down. So I can go into my database and say, I'm looking for a mic processor that's not in use, preferably, in our Waukesha storage facility, because that's close to where I'm going to be going. And I can search our database using those criteria and get a list of whatever's available. Or I can see, okay, this one's available, but it's in service. Or I can say, Dave can say to me, hey, what do we have in the studio in La Crosse? Well, I can pull up Studio La Crosse and get a list of everything that's in that studio. So it's a project I just started. There's software all over the place. I'm using Asset Tiger, but there's software all over the place, and you can do this and customize the databases. And the reason I'm using the asset numbers is then when you drill it down, you can find the exact piece of equipment, because I also have condition. So you can say, okay, there's a couple of mic processors in storage in Waukesha of various conditions. We know that the one with asset tag 10001 is one that's really good. So I'm going to go to the storage facility, and of all the mic processors that are stacked there, that's the one I'm looking for, because I know that one is in good shape.
And I'm sorry if I missed it. If you said, are any of these asset tags, are any of them RFID enabled?
No, I haven't, and really, we don't need to get down that deep into the well. I think it'd be easier to set it up, because right now I'm doing it all, putting the tags on, making notes of what I'm doing, and then going back and putting it into the database. But, there's certainly, you can scan there, they've got barcodes, they've got RFID, and those sorts of things. But, it's been a project that we've wanted to do for a long time, because we've got just gear all over, sitting in garages and things that we've pulled out that we don't want to have to buy, and we've done it. We've bought something without knowing that we've got one somewhere, in one of our facilities that's not being used. So this way, we have an entire list of what we've got. Or in the case of some of this stuff, we want to sell it. We just want, we're not going to use it, so we're going to unload it. We can see how many we have, the condition that they're in, and where they're located, and, get them all together.
Cool. All right, we got to run. Josh Jones, thank you very much for joining us, especially on short notice. I think you really figured this out about 3:00 this morning. He said, what?
Yeah. Yep.
So thank you for joining us on short notice. And
Yep,
I love the concept of knowing that, hey, it's cool for full-time engineers or contract engineers to call a company like Max Connect Group and get a job done, get something, get some turnkey done when you need it done. And that's one way that we help each other and manage projects and get the things done that station owners need done.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks,
Chris. I totally agree.
Chris, thank you for being with us as well. I appreciate you. Coming up next week, we've got a show about the LP-FM application window that's opening up in September. So you're going to want to be here for that. We'll find out more about LP-FMs. And if you're an engineer, you might end up building one for somebody. You might end up owning one. So that's coming up. Once again, thanks to Josh Jones and Chris Tarr. Thanks to Suncast for producing today's show. Really appreciate it. And thanks to you for watching and listening and making the show successful over so many years. Really appreciate you. And be sure you share your ideas with us. You can reach us on our website, or you can reach out to me personally if you know me on Facebook or X, Twitter, whatever it is these days. All right, we'll see you next week on This Week in Radio.